Welcome to This Week in Baseball Player Profiles, as we profile Coach Jamell Cervantes, who also runs Sharp Performance here in Wichita at 316 Baseball. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you played at Hutch Community College, and then you went on to play at Cincinnati. How were those two programs when you were there?
First at Hutch, we had a pretty good program with Coach Kyle Crooks at the helm, and had a great assistant coaching staff as well. My last year at Hutch, we ended up going to the World Series and taking third in the nation that year. We had a pretty solid team. We had 8 guys go Division I off that team, I do believe. It's just kind of building over the 3 years I spent at Hutch, just the work that was put in, the countless hours of practice, the strength training, and all that good stuff. But it was a great program to play for Coach Crooks at Hutch, and I really appreciate everything he did for me to make me a better player and a better human. When I went to Cincinnati, of course, after the World Series, also a great coaching staff there with Brian Cleary, Greg Mamula, J.D. Heilman. Those guys were some great guys to learn from, to learn the game from, and also that's when I began coaching as well. So they kind of took me under the wing my senior year after I got injured my junior year, and I became our outfield coach and coached first base when we hit. So just the direction they led me in was one I'd never thought I would take before. I never looked at coaching as an option. You know, everybody wanted to live that MLB dream, and I had the same dream. But when that injury happened and they let me keep my scholarship so I could keep working towards my degree, and then I began coaching, I just never looked back and wanted to do anything else besides coach.
And so speaking of coaching, you got into coaching, and was it your first real job was at Hutch? Was that for coaching?
My first year out of college, I went back to Hutch where I was part-time dorm supervisor and part-time baseball. So got a little bit of I guess kind of the real world taste right away. I had a desk job and I sat behind a desk from 9 to 5. And I mean, I appreciate the opportunity that Hutch gave me to be on campus and be around the kids, but I can't do a desk job, man. I sit behind a desk for 8 hours a day is not something I'd like to do for sure. But I helped a little bit here and there with the baseball my first year, and then after a coach had left, Coach Schmidt gave me a call and said, "Hey, why don't you come over and let's have a conversation?"
Right.
So we came over and we talked about me joining full time, and that's when I began my coaching career full time.
So what was your role there at Hutch? What did you play as far as?
So when I took the job, Coach Schmidt told me, "Well, okay, you're going to have this job, but your position is you're going to have to coach catchers." Dude, I've never even played catcher. I think I played catcher like twice in my life. So, well, you better learn it. So I spent that summer watching videos, going to clinics, reading books, putting catcher's gear on, doing the drills, catching bullpens to try to learn that position so I can see the game from another view. And it actually helped me a lot as far as baseball knowledge and just speed of the game kind of things. It allowed me to see the game from a different view. I played center field, so now we're talking about I'm on the complete opposite side of the field looking at the game from a different point of view. But then I wouldn't say it hindered me, but also then I would go out and recruit, and all I would stare at is the catcher. I wouldn't watch anything else because I was watching the catcher. So I had to make sure I was making focus on the whole field, not just the catching position.
Right. So then that transitioned you into going to WSU last year, coaching there. What was that experience like, and what was your role in that program?
The experience was great. You know, learning from Wedge and Pelfrey, Sirianni, and Scooter Hibbs. I mean, you can't ask for a better staff to join and learn the game of baseball from. And it was much more than just, you know, hey, you got to learn this position. Hey, you got to hit this way. It was more of the mindset and developing a good culture on a team. So, I mean, Coach Wedge, I can't say enough good things about him and the opportunity he gave me to be there. He's got endless amounts of knowledge from where he's been at the highest level of the game all the way down, and seeing the change in the culture and the development of the program in a short amount of time and the ways that he did it was something I'd never really experienced before, but it opened my eyes to a lot of different things. And of course, I mean, the staff was great. Me and Sirianni, we shared an office, which was awesome. And then you got Pelfrey, who was flying around causing havoc around the office the entire time, and then Scooter pop in every now and then with some great knowledge as well. And I talked a lot with Scooter about outfield play. Obviously he played the outfield, and the things he pointed on were some things I necessarily overlooked, but I didn't really think about as, hey, we got to be hard down on this. But with Scooter's help, I was able to help that and help our outfielders become better defensively.
Right. And you kind of ran the strength and conditioning program a little bit at both places, or you helped out at both places?
At Hutch, I helped out with some speed and strength stuff. Obviously, in junior college, there's not a lot of junior college programs that have a certified strength coach. So I would help out with the speed and strength stuff. And then at Wichita State, luckily, this year we had our own speed and strength coach with Garrett Bailiff, who did a phenomenal job keeping our guys healthy and getting them strong. We and Sirianni popped in on a couple days a week and helped with speed stuff. But Garrett did a great job doing that stuff, and I learned a lot from him just based off of what he was doing as well.
Well, now that led you to working at Sharp Performance, which is a part of combining with 316 baseball and working with our athletes in both baseball and softball side. Can you take some time and explain the program to everybody so they understand what it's about?
Yeah, absolutely. So with Sharp, Jake Sharp, Salina, Kansas, big name in football, wanted to get into the baseball deal. We kind of merged this thing together. I got to talking with him and having a couple good conversation with him about what we want to do for athletes, how we want to develop athletes. And I think that's where my passion the most in the game is the development side of things. You know, when I was in junior college, we had to develop these guys to get them to a 4-year school. Well, I can only develop them so much on the baseball side of things. If they're not developing speed and strength wise, then those two aren't going to be able to come together and never going to reach their highest potential they can. So here with with Sharp, with speed and strength, we're really focusing on the movements of our players more than anything. Just going out on Sundays this past fall and watching kids move around, even from youth to high school level, there's a lot of things that can be corrected to help them become better athletes, to help them run faster. You know, maybe your body aligns a little bit more instead of you thinking, okay, my arms are doing this, why can't they do this? So I'm just there to help lead them in the right directions of what we're trying to do. We have youth speed classes along with some strength stuff. I know a lot of people think early in their lifespan, kids shouldn't be moving weight, which I completely agree with, but we also have to build that foundation so we can build them up and slow cook the process rather than you're 14 now, jump under a bar and get after it.
Right.
So we're taking time, working on their single leg movements when they're younger to just kind of build that foundation up, and then we have our middle school to high school classes as well that are moving some weight, and we're making sure the proper technique's there. And with baseball, it's not about, you know, we're going to load the bar up and move it one time. We're going to try to move the weight at an efficient speed. Jake, when he's in here, he always talks about to the guys about moving that bar speed. We want good bar speed. We don't want the bar to move slow. We want the bar to move quick. So we'll really focus on the movement of the technique rather than, hey, let's load it up and take forever to get to that top part. So.
Okay. Well, that's some good stuff. Do you have like any expectations for your athletes that are in here when they're working with you?
Yeah, I expect, I think what every coach expects out of their players, and I expect them to get after it, to work hard, but at the same time, we want to have fun. You know, if your kids aren't in here having fun while they're working out, they're going to dread it. You know, they're going to be miserable, and I don't want that kind of experience for kids. You know, I want them to enjoy what they do. You know, I went through similar things as well. I was a guy that ran a 6'7", 6'8", and then my football coach made me run track in high school, and all of a sudden I was able to run the right way. My 60 dropped to a 6'4" or a 6'3", and it helped me out a lot. So I want to do the same thing for these kids. You know, I want to help them develop speed and strength wise, so they can develop on the field and become a better player. You know, so they're able to have that body control when they go backhand the 6-hole, or they're trying to score from first on a ball in the gap, and all of a sudden we can stay a little bit tighter on that run around the bag, and we can score instead of being thrown out. So my expectations are high for our guys.
Right.
And when I need to get after somebody a little bit, I'll get after somebody a little bit. Easton Elliott.
Yeah, Easton Elliott. I was about to say that.
But it's good, man. Me and Easton, we go back and forth with each other, and we get after each other a little bit every now and then when it needs to. But it's all good. And it's all love.
Well, good. So with all that going on, back when you played here, compare to your athletes that you went up against to what we have now. To me, I've asked this question to a lot of different coaches that have been on the show, and there is a difference.
Yeah.
Can you explain what you feel the difference is and what we can do to improve?
I would just say the overall difference I really see is, nobody goes outside and they just play anymore. You know, I didn't have a cell phone when I was 7 or 8 years old, or a tablet when I was 7 or 8 years old, so we all went outside and we played football, we played basketball, we played baseball, you rode bikes. You're around, you're running, you're moving, you're jumping. I think kids now might not have that same experience just because it's not their fault, it's just the society we live in. So I think that's the biggest difference we see is that when I'm old or something. My age, when we were younger, I think we developed athletically more just because we were out running and jumping, doing those kind of things, as compared to now where it's more video games, cell phones, tablets, YouTube, whatever it is. So that's what we're trying to bridge together here. From being in junior college as a coach, the biggest difference you see is speed and strength from freshman to sophomore. And it could be, they're just a year apart, but you can tell that either the speed of the game or how fast somebody's running or how hard it's hit or how hard it's thrown kind of eats those freshmen up their first fall, just because they've never done anything like that before.
Right.
Their bodies are tired. They're not as strong as these other guys, so they're wearing down faster. So that's the gap that we're trying to bridge here, is we're trying to better prepare our athletes to be ready to, one, make hopefully a varsity team, whether they're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, but once they get past high school, we want that gap to be closer when they get to their freshman year of college as well.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of these kids, they're good. Mm-hmm. Some of the best players in the area that we have here, but they don't realize what it's going to be when you get to that next level. You know? It's you could care less if you're all-state in Kansas because you're getting a kid from Oklahoma or Texas that's all-state. And
for sure.
I feel like we got to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference. I think you hit a key point there, in my opinion. So with that being said, was that something you looked at when you went to go recruit, when you were recruiting specifically? Let's just use Hutch as an example. I know you did some Wichita area, Oklahoma, Nebraska, stuff like that. Did you try to compare kids here to those kids because it's a different lifestyle?
There were some comparisons. Obviously, the further south you go, the players might just be a little bit better because, one, they can be outside year round.
Right.
Up in Kansas, when it's 15 degrees outside, nobody wants to go outside and
indoors,
hit. Nobody wants to go outside and throw. But now that we have these facilities like we have here, we're starting to bridge that gap a little bit. But I think, like I said, just the speed of the game, kids from the south are able to play more and longer just because of the temperature they're in, and it's warmer. And compared to kids in Kansas we might play till hopefully the middle of October before it gets cold. I know this year's been kind of weird and it stayed warmer longer, but that would be when we recruited. We went down south a little bit. We tried to make a big impact here in the Midwest. We, like you said, went after Wichita area kids. Some of our most successful players are from Wichita and Kansas City, but we had a really good kind of a honey hole in Nebraska. We had some really good players come from Nebraska, which I think the Kansas and Nebraska players have the talent. It's just they're not developed as much game-wise and game feel compared to kids that are in the South. Just the simple fact is they're playing more games in the South than we are up north.
That's what I was going to say. You think it's because they play more?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we get the opportunity to play.
There's nothing better than game reps. You can't. As much as we try to simulate game reps in practice, it's hard to do it.
Correct.
And so they're going down there. You think they played 50 games, 60 games in a high school season. In Texas, we played 25 here if you make the state championship. Then they roll through the summer and you roll through the fall, so they might play, well, it's all said and done, 150, 200 games in a year when we're playing maybe 75 to 100, if that. So, they're looking at another 100 games to have more game experience, more game reps, and more opportunities to get better than when up here, all of a sudden we're inside 5 to 6 months out of the year probably.
No, that's true. So if you had to give advice to even, let's say, the 22 class, 23, 24 class, what advice would you give them to start right now?
My best advice for younger athletes, take your time in the recruiting process. Know that, yes, you have your dream schools. Everybody has their dream school, but your dream school might not be the right spot for you. My part of my job as a recruiter is I had to tell some kids that, hey, I love you as a kid, you're a great kid, but if I bring you here, it's going to be a disservice to you because they need to go where they're going to play at.
Right.
So we can only, we try to keep our numbers low because we wanted the guys we brought in to have quality reps. But if I brought a kid in, hey, you're going to come in, you're probably not going to get that many reps. You're probably not going to play very much. So like I go back to the whole game rep thing, getting better. All of a sudden, you're sitting on the bench for a year and a half to 2 years. You never played. Now you're trying to move on to another 4-year school, and maybe nobody's recruiting you now because you never played.
Right.
So for us, it was a lot of hard conversations with kids, just because we didn't want to do them that disservice.
Right.
You know, you could go out and sign 100 kids, but 9 play. You know, maybe 12 play in the game if you go through your bullpen or you bring some off the bench to hit. So with that being said, like I said, take the recruiting process and process everything. You know, ask questions to the coaching staff you're going. Research the schools that you're interested in. Just maybe you go on an academic visit just through the admissions department and talk to them. Go meet teachers, you know. Ask your coaches, you know, like your recruiting services. You know a lot about recruiting. You know, we've talked, I don't know,
all the time.
6 to 8 years now about recruiting just because you were here and I was there. But ask questions is the biggest thing. And I would say focus on your development. You know, I think every kid wants an instant fix. You know, I want to throw harder, so let's go get weighted balls. Yeah, weighted balls are going to play they can play some sort of part of development. But if I'm 13 years old and I weigh 110 pounds, going and picking up a weighted ball might not be the best thing for me. That's where also we're trying to bridge that gap where, okay, why don't you come in with us and we'll develop some strength on you. And then maybe you're a junior, senior, maybe you pick up a weighted ball when the time is right. But your development just doesn't stop with, okay, I need to hit lessons and I'm only doing lessons, pitching lessons, hitting lessons, fielding lessons, but I'm not going to focus on my speed, my strength, and my nutrition. You know, those 3 things are huge in development. You know, I never thought about it before. I was 135 pounds when I graduated high school going into Hutch, and I thought, oh, I'm pretty strong. And I get there and guys are playing the same position at 200 pounds. It's like, uh-oh, something's wrong here. So I sat down with the coaches and we had a long talk about nutrition and development and that stuff, and I started eating food that I never ate before, but it was good for me, so it helped me gain 70 pounds in 3 years, and then I became to take my ceiling higher and higher the stronger I got. So I would say, you know, focus huge academics. You can't hammer academics enough. Ask questions, take your time in the recruiting process, and focus on your development from a speed, strength, and nutrition standpoint.
And getting on the recruiting process, you know that NJCAA made that new decision about giving everybody an extra year. How do you think that's going to go? How do you think that's going to affect JUCOs as well as 4-year schools, because everybody's having a little bit of a tough time? How do you think that's going to affect everybody?
I'm just glad I'm not doing that job anymore. I'll tell you that much right now.
I hear you. I hear you.
It's going to make everything, I think it's just, I mean, it's going to be a really, really tough process. You know, especially at the 4-year level where you have all these roster limitations. I know this year they don't, but I don't know how it's going to be going forward. You know, some schools are out where you've recruited 3 years out. So now what are you going to do if all of a sudden your senior decides to stay another year and your junior decides to stay another 3 years? Whatever it is, whatever the math is, but I think rosters are going to get filled up pretty quick. So, I mean, like I said, ask questions when you're on your visits. I couldn't imagine having to deal with that right now. You know, I'd still talk to a lot of the JUCO coaches in the area, and for the most part, a lot of them, their numbers aren't too high right now, but I know it's a lot of it comes back as, well, I don't know if this kid's going to leave or not. You know, this kid could stay another year when we all thought he was going to be gone, so that's going to affect further recruiting going forward.
It's just a trickle-down effect from the draft and all that.
Yeah, for sure.
So switching all topics here.
All right.
I know you're a busy man. You did a lot. What hobbies do you have outside of what you've got going on between lessons and workouts and all that stuff?
Yeah, well, my newest hobby is I have dance parties with my 10-month-old daughter, so that's a lot of fun, and she's crawling now, so she's flying around the house and she's drooling everywhere, teeth are coming in, so that's been fun. I like to smoke meat on my smoker. That's about what I do the majority of the time when I have some time off. But a lot of time, you know, it's funny because you're a baseball guy and we find ourselves in our free time doing baseball stuff, you know. So, I mean, I come up here early and I might hit one day just to see what I can still swing it like. Where I'll lift, and I lift pretty often, but, you know, a lot of my hobbies are still around the game of baseball.
Okay. So, is there something interesting about you that maybe nobody knows?
That's a good one. Something interesting. Gosh, I'm a pretty even keel guy. I had a bowl cut until I was in 6th grade. That's probably the most interesting. It was probably the
Was
sweetest.
it aerodynamic?
Oh no, it was split down the middle. It kind of curled in the front right there. So it was.
Oh, those are pictures we gotta get.
Oh yeah. They got. I think Denny Steckline put them on Twitter. I think last year, my birthday. So yeah, the bowl cut was probably one thing not a lot of people know about. Before that, I had a rat tail for about 3 years. So
Oh man,
the hits just keep coming. I joke with my girlfriend all the time now. I'm like, hey, I'm bringing the rat tail back. She's like,
bringing it
no
back.
chance. No chance. I'm like, okay, well, let me bring the bowl cut. So we haven't got either one of those approved yet, so we'll see.
Well, I want to thank you for coming in and taking some time out of your day to visit the show and do stuff like that and give some good advice to all the players. Hopefully you guys take what he said as a former coach and strength and conditioning coach here at Sharp Performance, which is open to the public. If anybody's interested in coming in and getting extra workouts, it's not just dedicated to 316 baseball and softball players, but we are open to the public to giving that out to everybody here to come get better. And that's the whole point about this. I want to thank BG Productions today for producing the show and being today's sponsor. That concludes This Week in Baseball Player Profiles. Thank you.